Welcome to Syncreate, a show for creative seekers. We explore the deep human stories of creativity, psychology, and spirituality. We believe everyone has the capacity to create. Our goal is to demystify the process and expand the boundaries of what it means to be creative. What holds us back? Why do we get stuck? And how can we fully embrace our creativity? We talk with visionaries and change makers and everyday creatives working in a wide range of fields and media, from the arts to science, technology, and business. We aim to illuminate the creative process, from imagination to innovation and everything in between. I'm Melinda Rothaus, and I help individuals and organizations bring their dreams and visions to life.
I'm Charlotte Gulick, and I'm a writer, educator, and writing coach. We are the co-authors of a book on the creative process, also called Syncreate. At Syncreate, we're here to support your creative endeavors. If you have an idea for a project or a new venture and you're not sure how to get it off the ground, find us at syncreate.org. Our book, now available in both print and audiobook format, walks you through the stages of the creative process so you can take action on your creative goals. We offer resources, creative process tools, and coaching to help you bring your work to the world.
Welcome back to our Syncreate Creative Spark series. Today, we are going to talk about finding your story. So storytelling is such an important part of creativity. You know, usually in our creative work, whatever genre or medium we're working in, there's a story that we're trying to tell. Often we're trying to make sense of something in our own lives and then convey that to other people in some way, whether we're writing a novel or composing a piece of music or dance, whatever it might be, film. And so, Charlotte, you teach writing and fiction and memoir and storytelling to various students in various, institutions. And how do you help others find the story, both in their own experiences, and how do people get inspired to find the story in their lives and then convey that creatively? How do you help people do that?
Well, I have a theory on the world,
Oh.
and the theory is, particularly for people who are interested in some form of writing, whether that's film or poetry or digital storytelling, they're on a quest to understand.
Yes.
And they're probably someone who, for whatever reason, one was probably an early reader, or there was something about books that was very compelling and
Mhm.
called to them. And so they took if not refuge, definitely pleasure in the land of story. And so my deeper theory is that this is related to conflict, is that there was something going on in their life that was maybe unpleasant. And so books were regular, they're steady. You can also close the page if it gets too tense, which is what we can't do in our own lives. And so they're drawn to story because they are conflict avoidant. Um, so that, and then what's really hard when you are in the person working with story, it's actually conflict is a lot of what keeps people engaged,
Mm.
because to figure out how to do this thing called life, and conflict
Yeah.
is part of life. So they're
Yeah.
reading for meaning. So I think that's one of the things, like, how do you help people find their stories? Like, what's something that sits within you in a spiky way?
Mm.
This doesn't, this is this moment or this pattern from my childhood or from my 30s, 40s, 50s, like it could be from a decade. And what's that pattern about? And can I poke at it through story to kind of figure out, do I want to continue this pattern? Do I want to make some peace with it?
Mhm.
And then in particular, asking people, when your story is finished and a reader or a listener or viewer has they've been on the journey with you. What's something you want them to think or feel or do as a result of being with you in story? And maybe that's to take action or to make the world a better place or to forgive a father. Like what's the kind of the anchor of it that is bringing you to the page?
I think that's really important because, I've worked with a lot of writers as well, and especially things like memoir. I often liken it to like emotional archaeology. You have to dig deep and dust off these things that are not always pleasant or that we don't always really want to uncover or investigate, and yet somehow we're driven to share that story. But I think sometimes thinking about like, what is the goal of sharing this story? Like, how can I
Mhm.
inspire other people, or how can I help other people, or prompt them to some kind of action can be really helpful motivation.
And then there are the folks who like Carolyn Meese, who, has a lot of books, but and I don't think she's the first person to say this, but, it really s that she was the first person that I encountered from. It's like, if we don't work with our story and make some peace with those spiky moments or the patterns or through lines, is that the potential for our biography to become our biology.
Mm.
That's where dis-ease comes from, is that we haven't, found an equilibrium with the stories that have informed where we are. And so that it is and her theory is that the way that we can heal is that we tell our story to an interested audience 3 times, and then it actually is something like almost an alchemical process where we move the potential for something that's in our biography to become our biology. That there's something about sharing together,
Mhm.
um, that allows for movement and understanding.
Can I yeah, so it doesn't get stuck in our bodies. And I just have to add, there's some really interesting research coming out right now about how the a really good way to like release emotional pain or stress or unease is to just literally name what we're feeling. And so that process of expressing it, whether to other people or just to ourselves,
Mhm.
they've done these studies comparing people who were, whatever the pain or distress they were feeling, either kept it to themselves or actually verbalized and expressed it. And the difference in these sort of measures of well being was sort of staggering, actually. So there's like a potent um healing factor in sharing our stories or sharing the things that we're struggling with.
I totally agree, and I think that, like, the next level of, like, okay, if I were a person that was an early reader, and I took refuge in books, so I was conflict avoidant, but I'm drawn to writing, is, like, the storytelling that we do now can't be about revenge or, easy caricature, even if you're writing that memoir about your hideous grandmother, like, there's this, component of it that requires us to take a bigger picture. Like,
Mm.
okay, if my grandmother was hideous, what were the social economic factors in her life that may have contributed to that? It's like you get to lift up out of the personal and, take an overview and go, "Oh, maybe with a modicum of compassion, I could understand why she was so terrible." And, like
Mhm.
that there's this the power of story to, help us, um, move toward understanding. Like, I think it's remarkable.
Yeah. Yeah, so you talked about that spikiness, but, like, if someone is, like, trying to find the story in either a particular incident or in the larger context of a memoir, like, um you mentioned when we were preparing for this, like, sort of patterns and through lines. So if
Mhm.
someone's trying to find their own story or what is the meaning in their own experience, say more about that.
Well, you have two thoughts about it. One is if there's like a moment that stays within us that's spiky, that we can um, explore it like, how does that moment stay with me now so that I'm stuck? And how's that informing current decisions or patterns that are happening? Like, avoiding people or avoiding commitment. Like there's probably a relationship. So that could be a pattern. Or I'm thinking of a memoir by Brad Land called Goat, where he was in a very violent attack and he healed some, and then he went off to college, and then his brother wanted him to join a fraternity, and the fraternity evoked some of the same emotions as the violent attack, and what he's doing is looking at male initiation rites around violence.
Yeah.
And so he took his personal story and then tried to examine it through a larger social lens. So I think that the spikiness is and through lines and patterns is, while this moment is very, very personal, can I look at it through a different perspective so that I start to see that there are larger forces at work here?
So kind of that idea of like the personal is the universal.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Finding the
Yes.
wider theme. Yeah. Great. So what's the pro tip for today?
The pro tip is, so if you're a person who's drawn to writing at all, what you might do is make a list of moments that are spiky, that you're like, that just didn't feel good in my craw, that interaction, or maybe it's something from childhood, and brush up against it. Like, how does it feel to think about making friends with it? You're not asking the memory to go away. You're just trying to say, how do I think about this with more ease in my physical body? And then
Mhm.
with your medium, you can maybe paint a picture, or you could um, make a poem, or just to see what would it feel like with like a moment that's kind of not great within you. What would it feel like to try to move it a little bit? And I would just add to that, like, if these are like, oh, these are some of the top 3 moments of my life that are very intense, maybe those aren't the ones to brush up against unless you're in a supported environment, but maybe scale like items 4, 5, or 6 on that list where you might be, um, um, where it might be good to um, reconsider it. Okay, so I have an example. When my father was hours away from dying, his girlfriend, who knows that I'm ordained over the internet, asked if I would marry them.
Mm.
Um, And I was like, "The audacity!" Like, and I was in a writing exercise. She's like, "I have a wedding dress." Um, and he had given her engagement ring, and, I was in a writing exercise, and someone asked to think about a moment that stays with you and look like, kinda as a tableau, and to write it from a different perspective, and it was amazing, and I actually wrote the piece, and it got published,
Did you
but
marry them?
it's no.
Okay. I was
I
like,
did not. I
what's
did
the
not.
punchline of this story?
I know. Well, she called me. I was at my mom's house, and she's like, "Will you marry us?" And then I went up, and then my dad, who couldn't speak very much, and, she's like, "What do you say? Should we get married?" And he didn't respond. Um,
Mm.
and so she took it as a no. It's only through the process of writing about it that I understand actually how painful that must have been for her,
Yeah.
and how, gracious it was that she accepted his no.
Yeah.
But for years, I had held on to it as,
Mm.
like, again, the audacity, can you
Mm.
imagine?
Yeah.
So I think those and it came from an exercise of, like, something where you would like a new perspective on.
Mhm. Love that.
Find and connect with us on YouTube and social media under Syncreate. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and leave us a review.
We're recording today at Record ATX Studios in Austin with Charlotte joining us from the Hudson Valley. The podcast is produced in collaboration with Mike Osborne at 14th Street Studios. Thanks so much for being with us, and see you next time.